Look at me, look at me, look at me. Picture this. You're scrolling through your social media feed and it's filled with selfies. Ever wondered why? Today we delve into the world of selfies, millennials, and narcissism. It seems like every time we open our social media apps, we're greeted by an array of smiling faces, scenic backdrops, and carefully curated poses. Selfies, once a novelty, have now become a staple of our online social interactions. But have you ever stopped to ponder why this is so? Why are selfies so prevalent, particularly among the millennial generation? The millennial generation, those born between the early 1980s to the mid-1990s, have grown up in an era of unprecedented technological advancement. They've witnessed the birth of the internet, the rise of social media, and the evolution of smartphones with front-facing cameras, all tools that have facilitated the selfie phenomenon. But there's more to the selfie culture than just accessibility and convenience. Enter narcissism, a trait often characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a disregard for others' feelings. Some argue that the selfie trend is more than just a harmless form of expression. It could be a reflection of a narcissistic tendency prevalent among millennials. But is it fair to label an entire generation as narcissistic based on their selfie habits? Or is this just another form of self-expression, a modern-day equivalent of the self-portrait? After all, humans have always found ways to reflect their image, whether it was staring at one's reflection in the water in ancient times or painting self-portraits in the Renaissance era. These are complex questions with no easy answers. However, understanding the intersection of selfies, millennials, and narcissism can provide valuable insights into our society, our behaviors, and our relationships with each other. Are we nurturing a generation of narcissists? Stay tuned as we explore this further. But first, let's understand the psychology behind selfies. Now, it's not just about snapping a quick photo. There's a science to it. We live in a digital age where selfies have become a universal form of self-expression and communication. But why do we take them? Firstly, selfies are a form of validation. They allow us to control the narrative about ourselves. When we post a selfie and receive likes, shares, and comments, it's a form of positive reinforcement. It tells us that we're appreciated, and that can be a powerful boost to our self-esteem. Secondly, selfies are a way of expressing individuality. They allow us to showcase our personality, our style, our mood. Essentially, they are a visual diary of who we are at any given moment. They give us the opportunity to share a part of our world with others. Finally, there's a social competition aspect. In the age of social media, where everyone's life is on display, taking and sharing selfies has become a way to keep up with the Joneses. We're all vying for attention, trying to portray our lives as interesting, exciting, or enviable. The better the selfie, the more social currency it carries. However, it's important to note that this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Humans are social creatures, and the desire to connect and be seen is deeply ingrained in us. Selfies are just a modern manifestation of this age-old desire. But like anything, there's a flip side. The need for validation can become addictive. The desire for self-expression can morph into self-obsession. Social competition can lead to feelings of inadequacy, and that's where the potential for narcissism comes in. So it's clear that selfies serve a purpose. But when does it cross the line into narcissism? That's a question we'll be diving into as we continue our exploration into the world of selfies, millennials, and narcissism. Now, we venture into the realm of narcissism and its connection to selfies. Narcissism is a term that hails from Greek mythology, where the young Narcissus fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water, staring at it for the remainder of his life. In psychological terms, narcissism is a personality disorder characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, an intense focus on oneself, and a lack of empathy for others. But how does this relate to selfies? Well, you see, the act of taking a selfie is inherently self-focused. It's all about capturing our best angle, our most attractive smile, or our most exciting moment. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to document our lives or share our experiences, it becomes a problem when it crosses over into obsession. When selfie taking becomes excessive to the point where it's a dominant part of our social interaction, it might be a sign of narcissistic tendencies. This is especially true when the person is constantly seeking validation and admiration from others through their selfies. They may become overly concerned with their image and how they're perceived by others, placing their self-esteem in the hands of their social media followers. One study published in the Journal of Psychology of Popular Media Culture found that higher levels of narcissism were associated with a larger number of selfies posted on social media. This suggests a link between the frequency of selfie taking and narcissistic traits, such as a need for validation and admiration. However, it's important to remember that taking selfies doesn't necessarily make you a narcissist. We all have moments of self-absorption and vanity. It's part of being human. The key is balance and awareness. It's about recognizing when our behavior may be veering into unhealthy territory and taking steps to correct it. Remember, it's not about demonizing selfies, but understanding the potential implications of excessive selfie culture. We've seen how selfies can feed into narcissism, but what are the negative effects of this? Narcissism, like any other personality trait, can be harmful when it becomes excessive. The first casualty is often personal relationships. Narcissists tend to view others as mere extensions of themselves, rather than as separate individuals with their own thoughts and feelings. This disregard for the autonomy of others can lead to a lack of empathy, causing relationships to suffer, and leaving a trail of emotional wreckage in its wake. At the heart of narcissism lies an inflated sense of self-importance, an unquenchable thirst for admiration. This constant need for validation can lead to a distorted self-image. Narcissists often overestimate their abilities and accomplishments while underestimating those of others. This skewed perspective can create a fragile ego, one that is easily bruised by the slightest criticism or perceived slight. This brings us to another negative effect of narcissism: hypersensitivity to criticism. Narcissists are often so invested in maintaining their grandiose self-image that they may react with anger or defensiveness when confronted with feedback that doesn't align with their self-perception. This can hinder personal growth and development, as they are unlikely to acknowledge their flaws or make efforts to improve. Moreover, narcissism can lead to a negative self-image in the long run. Despite their outward show of confidence, many narcissists are plagued by feelings of insecurity and inadequacy. They may constantly compare themselves to others, always striving to be the best, the most admired, the most envied. But this is a race with no finish line, a pursuit of validation that ultimately leads to dissatisfaction and discontent. So while a healthy dose of self-love and self-esteem is essential for our well-being, narcissism is a different beast altogether. It's not just about loving oneself, but rather an obsession with oneself that can lead to a host of negative outcomes. Narcissism is not just about self-love, it's a complex issue with real-world consequences. Narcissism doesn't exist in a vacuum, it affects those around us too. Let's dive into how narcissism impacts others. You see, narcissism, particularly when it's excessive, has a profound effect on the people who interact with a narcissist. It can lead to toxic relationships and environments that are detrimental to mental health. Imagine being in a relationship with a narcissist. They often display a lack of empathy, making it difficult for them to understand or care about your feelings. In their world, it's all about them. Their needs, their wants, their feelings take center stage, and you may find yourself constantly sidelined. In these relationships, you might feel like you're walking on eggshells, always trying to avoid the narcissist's wrath or disapproval. You might find yourself constantly trying to meet their high expectations, only to be met with criticism and disdain when you fall short. This can lead to a sense of worthlessness and low self-esteem. Now, let's shift gears and think about a workplace environment with a narcissistic leader. It's a scenario where the leader's self-absorption and grandiosity can create a culture of fear and competition. Their need for constant admiration and validation can lead to favoritism and unfair treatment. Employees may feel undervalued, stressed, and demotivated, leading to a high turnover rate and low productivity. And what about friendships? Narcissistic friends can be draining, always turning the conversation back to themselves, showing little interest in your life, and manipulating situations to their advantage. These friendships often feel one-sided and unsatisfying. But remember, it's not about demonizing individuals with narcissistic tendencies. It's about understanding the dynamics at play and recognizing the impact these behaviors can have on others. This knowledge empowers us to set boundaries, protect our mental health, and make informed decisions about the relationships we cultivate. As we continue our series into narcissism, consider subscribing to our channel to stay updated. So, are we, millennials, nurturing a generation of narcissists? This question has been the undercurrent of our discussion today. As we've delved into the world of selfies, the psychology behind them, and their link to narcissism, it's become clear that there's more than meets the eye in those perfectly filtered snaps. We've explored the idea that our selfie culture could be fueling narcissistic tendencies and the negative effects that could have, not just on ourselves, but on those around us too. It's an uncomfortable thought, isn't it? That our harmless fun could be causing harm. But it's also an important one, because awareness is the first step toward change. Let's recap. We've learned that selfies are more than just pictures. They're expressions of identity, and for some, they can become a quest for validation. That's where the danger lies. When we start to measure our worth by the number of likes and comments we receive, we're treading on shaky ground. We've also seen how this can lead to narcissistic tendencies. Narcissism, as we've discussed, isn't just about self-love. It's an inflated sense of self-importance, a lack of empathy for others, and a need for excessive admiration. And these traits can have detrimental effects. They can damage relationships, erode self-esteem, and even lead to mental health issues. But here's the thing, it's not all doom and gloom. Yes, our selfie culture could be contributing to narcissism, but it doesn't have to. The key is balance and self-awareness. It's okay to take selfies to seek connection and validation, but it's also crucial to remember that our worth isn't defined by our online presence. It's defined by who we are as individuals, by our actions, our values, and our capacity for empathy. So what's next? How do we navigate this complex issue? This is where you come in. We're all in this together, and it's up to us to shape the conversation. We'll continue to delve deeper into this topic in our upcoming series. What are your thoughts on this topic? Comment below and let's dissect this issue together.